Good Thursday to you. I hope you are having a great day. Thanks for joining More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine. Bud Shaw will join us a little later to talk Browns Steelers. But we begin tonight with the Indians. And it has finally happened. The Indians have traded Francisco Lindor. He is headed to the Big Apple, but he is not going to the Yankees. He's going to the New York Mets. Let's take a look at the trade. Lindor and Carrasco go to the Mets for Ahmed Rosario. He's a shortstop with major league experience. Andres Jimenez, also a shortstop, has played in the big leagues. Josh Wolf, a pitcher that is considered a top 10 prospect for the Mets. Isaiah Green, an outfielder, also top 10 prospect in the Mets organization. The trade saves the Indians $64 million in payroll. Chris Antonetti, Vice President of Baseball Operations, or President of Baseball Operations rather, explains the Indians' trade.
Obviously, trades like this are really tough, not only when you're trading players that are extraordinary competitors and extraordinary contributors on the field, but are even better people off the field. And in both players' cases, in Carlos and Francisco's case, they've had a huge impact in our on-field success over the course of the last, better part of the last decade. We feel like this is another trade in which we were able to bring back players that will help us sustain our competitiveness, not only in 2021, but in the future. We'll bring back two players that can contribute to our major league team immediately, and will be here for the foreseeable future, and added some depth to our farm system with two prospects that we think have a chance to develop into good players. So this is another example of us trying to make sure that we actively manage our roster, actively manage our finances in order to stay competitive and continue the run of success that we've had over the last 8 years.
Chris Antonetti, President of Baseball Operations, and the Indians save about $44 million in payroll between trading what Lindor would have got in arbitration and Carrasco's salary. They now have the lowest salary in Major League Baseball. Let's welcome in Anthony Castrovince. He is a national writer for MLB.com. And Anthony, you told us it was not a matter of if Lindor was going to be traded, it was when. He was traded now. How did they do with what they got in return?
Well, this was a fair value in this market, in these conditions, for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. The problem, of course, is that fair value in these conditions does not nearly align with the value, fans place on star talents like this. These are beloved ball players. Francisco Lindor is the magnetic face, or was the magnetic face, of this franchise. Carlos Carrasco is one of the more beloved players that I've ever covered here in Cleveland, and brings tremendous value to a rotation. So yeah, there's a lot of fans understandably looking at this and going, where's the rest? That it looks a little light. But when you understand baseball's market right now, and you mentioned the money that was moved in this deal, so many teams scaling back, with Lindor a year away from free agency, with Lindor coming off a very non-Lindor year, and with so many shortstops in next winter's free agent market, so many high caliber shortstop, Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Trevor Story, Javier Baez, and Lindor. This constitutes fair value.
And important to note, you were an Indians beat reporter a number of years ago. You're a Northeast Ohio native. You're very familiar with the franchise. When you look at that, is this a flat-out rebuild now? I mean, when you look at, I know you have Shane Bieber and you have some really good young pitching, but the lineup struggled as it was last year with Santana and Lindor to score runs. They were one of the bottom feeders as far as scoring runs. Now you're struggling to find major league bats in that lineup.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would prevent me from calling this a full-on rebuild is the presence they have, at the top of the rotation with Shane Bieber being a Cy Young winner, and Zach Plesac, the development we've seen there, Aaron Savali. I mean, they have quality pitching, which, when you have that as a backbone, you could be good in a hurry. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is as close to a full-scale rebuild as we've seen in the last decade with this club. Baseball has changed a lot to where the quote-unquote rebuild is not what it used to be. It's not the when some franchises have had a 20-year process of rebuilding and trying to build a championship window. You can do it quicker now. the game has gotten younger, prospects are promoted faster, and the Indians have a really strong farm system. It's stronger, particularly in the lower levels, and this deal adds to those lower levels with the 2 prospects they received in this deal. But it can turn around quicker. But there's no question about it that this major league product for 2021, nobody's going to be counting this club as a contender.
When you look at across the landscape of baseball, how well respected is the Indians' development? I mean, it seems like, they develop starting pitching like nobody's business. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys every year that you're going, where did he come from? And he comes up and they stick him in, and whenever he starts, he wins.
Yeah, and I want to amend something I just said, where I said nobody's going to be counting them as a contender, and that's true, but we also do have to see the rest of the offseason plays out, yada, yada, yada. I have to add those attendance because with the significant savings for 2021, I expect them to have a low payroll. I don't know that they'll have the lowest payroll in baseball in 2021, so we will see what comes from this financial flexibility they've granted themselves with this deal, because there's clear needs in the outfield. But to your point about the development, they've been fantastic at developing arms, less fantastic at developing bats, and even in some cases where they've tried to identify young bat from other systems. I mean, Jake Bowers comes to mind from the deal a couple of years back that brought Carlos Santana back to Cleveland. That's a deal that just hasn't panned out to date. So that's where they're short, clearly is in position player bats, particularly outfield bats. And you'll notice that there are no present day major league outfielders in this Lindor deal. So that has a lot of people shaking or, scratching their heads. But, that is an important element of this deal, is the financial flexibility. And, maybe they use that to go get an outfielder in free agency. We just have to see how the rest of this offseason plays out.
Do you expect them to be, at least involved somewhat, in the lower level? They're certainly not going to go out and spend a boatload of money on somebody, because if they were willing to do that, Lindor would still be here. But do you expect them to sign some of the lower level free agents to at least make the offense somewhat competitive?
Yeah, and there's a lot of inventory in this free agent market. There's just a lot of players, period, and there's not a lot of spending going on in the industry right now. The Mets have been one of the more aggressive teams in baseball. They signed James McCann to a 4-year, $40 million deal, and that's more than any team combined, has signed on any players combined. And now on top of that, they've done this deal. So it's a marketplace that's still very much developing. There's a lot of movement to come, but it's going to be suppressed prices just because of, supply and demand factors. So, there could be some bargain bin ads to be had there. You look at like a Cesar Hernandez signing from last year. I mean, maybe a player of that nature, that good little ball player they were able to add on the cheap. And by the way, they might try to bring him back as well. But so yeah, it's developing as all things in our world right now. The baseball free agent market very much developing, and still a lot of questions left to be answered.
And really, the spending, hasn't been there. Is the financial difficulties that teams are saying, are those real? Attendance you didn't get anything from. So that leads me to believe the small market teams like the Indians, who rely, the disparity is in the TV revenue. And the small market teams are the ones that are getting crushed because there was no attendance.
Right. Every team was obviously impacted by the pandemic in some way, but it does get situation specific, the severity of it. And it's interesting because like a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't draw fans, but they actually have a TV deal that is double that of what the Indians receive on an annual basis. So they are in a better position than Cleveland, which, many people maybe wouldn't understand that. Every market is different. There's teams that have heavily invested in their areas around the ballpark, very much invested in the fan experience and the revenue that generates. So they're affected more than a team that, predominantly relies on the TV money. One issue that the Indians have faced in recent years is their TV deal is just not on par with, their ratings, quite frankly. They have, they get great ratings here in Cleveland, but the TV deal is not aligned with market value right now. They signed it in prior to 2013, and at this point, it's an outdated deal. And still another couple of years to go on that deal.
Let me ask you this. Let's switch focus. The Indians have said they're going away from the from the name the Indians. They aren't going to do an interim as the Cleveland baseball team, they've said as well. What do you like? I mean, let's have a little fun. Now that we've talked about the woe is me with Lindor in the lineup and that, what do you like as far as rebranding the team?
Well, I've become the biggest proponent of the name Spiders. I've taken that mantle to be as obnoxious about promoting the name of Spiders as possible. Spiders is the most divisive name out there in terms of the popular suggestions that we've heard. It has the Cleveland baseball history, the National League franchise in the 1800s that was known as the Spiders. They brought Cleveland its first major professional sports title, the 1895 Temple Cup. You all remember that one. And I just think it's a cool and marketable name. And the problem with Indians, on top of the obvious, was the lack of marketability. Like, they couldn't do much with their own name that's not insensitive from a logo perspective and whatnot. So Spiders is entirely marketable, but it's also really complicated. It's really polarizing, they found, in terms of the fan base. It's the most popular suggestion out there, but it's also the most unpopular suggestion out there. So it is really polarizing, and it has a lot of legal hurdles, trademark issues, and with every name, not every name, but most of the names that get bandied about, there's serious trademark issues to be had here. So that's why I know it's hard for people to grasp, like, why they didn't announce a new name at the time, announcing getting away from the name. But I think the former Redskins, are finding this as well, that it's a difficult process to rebrand at this stage of the game. The trademark issues, social media handles, you name it. There's just a lot of heavy lifting to be done when it's one thing to choose a name, but then to clear all those hurdles to actually, get the name to the finish line is difficult.
Last thing I'll ask you before I let you go. So assuming this is somewhat of a rebuild, it's got to be considered somewhat of a rebuild. How confident should Indians fans be just with what they have in Antonetti and that player development? I mean, from my perspective, they've been pretty good. I know they're working with limited resources that really kind of handcuff them, but they're pretty good at identifying talent. Is that something that the Cleveland fans should take away? You've got a very good base and development people that will be developing this franchise.
Yeah, Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco are headed to the Mets, but Mike Chernoff and Chris Antonetti are not. They were wooed. The Mets, among other teams, have wanted them over the years, and that's I know people have issues with the Dolan ownership and the where they spend on the player payroll, but the stability they've established in that front office is second to none. And you've had many of their underlings go on to do great things in the baseball industry at other places. They are very well regarded in the industry for the culture they've created and for their ability to build a ball club. And they've shown it time and time again, the ability to, sometimes we look at these trades and we go, I don't know about that one. And then it turns out pretty well in the end. I had some serious doubts about the Mike Clevenger deal last summer, and still a lot of questions about that moving forward, but Mike Clevenger's not even pitching in 2021. So that deal already looks a lot better than it did 6 months ago. And they prove it time and again. So they've earned the benefit of the doubt. They're being handed a very difficult situation here where, the payroll has been drastically cut in recent years, but it's not an excuse in baseball anymore. I mean, the big spending is not always your ticket to October. It's smart spending. And it's smart acquisitions. And these guys have done a great job of that over the years. So again, we'll see how the rest of this offseason plays out and just how that developmental pipeline plays out.
I lied. I got one more for you. Tell me a little bit about the guys that the Indians got back, what you know of them, and what Indians fans should know about each of them from a national perspective. I know you also are involved in the National League some, so you probably are familiar with some of these guys.
Yeah, two shortstops, obviously. Now, Rosario is the more established of the two, but he basically lost his starting job to Jimenez here in 2020. Jimenez is really a really strong defender, a lot of speed. The bat, some questions about it because he did put up good numbers in 2020. He doesn't hit the ball with much authority, and that shows in the advanced numbers. And Rosario, the concern there is he kind of played himself out of the starting job with the way his bat sagged. But there have been moments where Rosario has really played like a star. He's had some really strong spates of time, half a season here and there, that kind of thing. So, you always want up the middle talent, and those guys, whoever plays short, the other guy can bounce around the diamond essentially. So they have depth now at that position while losing a franchise player like Lindor at short. As far as the two young prospects, it's all, you're dreaming on the future there. These are two recent second-round picks, but I try not to talk too deeply about players that I just physically haven't seen play. I certainly know what's in scouting reports about them, and I know they have high hopes for the long-term potential of those two players. They were rated 9th and 10th in the Mets system. The Mets system is kind of iffy. It was 20th. We ranked it at MLB.com as 20th in baseball. So when you say 9 and 10 from the Mets system, that's different than 9 and 10 from a system that's ranked at the top end of baseball. So probably good, not great prospects just on paper. You never know what players develop and do long term, but those guys are, they're at the lowest levels of the minors right now.
Anthony Castrovince, national beat writer for MLB.com, Northeast Ohio native, former Cleveland Indians beat writer. Thanks so much for the insight and the time. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it.
No problem, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, Anthony Castrovince talking Francisco Lindor trade. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk Cleveland Browns football. Bud Shaw joins us to preview the Browns-Steelers playoff game Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. You see the number if you want to get involved. Let's welcome in Bud Shaw. Dr. Shaw, thank you for the time. Good to see you.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know who was supposed to be on tonight, but you got the equivalent of Mike Prefer now sitting in.
Next man up. Next man up. You heard the Francisco Lindor chatter. Before we get going with the Browns, what do you? I mean, it's a tough time to be an Indians fan. What do you make of the whole Lindor situation?
Well, I don't. I expected it to happen before spring training, so I wasn't at all surprised. Seeing Carrasco go too for what they got in return, made it feel probably more like a salary dump than the original deal involving Lindor was. So I could see why fans are upset. We're talking about a team that as recently as 4 years ago was spending close to 130 million or so in salary, and now is down around 22, I think. And I realize they say that they plan to add to that, but it's a tough one. I mean, you could probably do 5 shows on whether the Dolans are forced to do this or choose to do this. But I think after it's not too hard for people to see what the financial hit they took was through last season with the COVID virus. So I kind of expected that it would be tough to sign Lindor even in the best of times, and certainly never expected that they could after last year.
And the important thing to remember about the Indians is so much of their payroll is based on attendance, and there was none. I mean, none.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
All right, let's shift gears here. We're going to talk a little bit about Cleveland Browns football, some news out of Berea. No practice today. Facilities still closed. One guy comes off the COVID list. That's Andrew Zendejo. Ronnie Harrison goes on. Don't think Browns fans are going to like that trade a whole lot, but it is what it is in 2020. It's a tough situation. I mean, on top of everything else, they haven't been on the practice field in a week.
Yeah, it's the saving grace is they might like that trade a little more than the Lindor trade, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I think when and I realized that the full speed ahead, next man up mantra coming out of Berea is what you expect to hear and what you want to hear. But let's take a step back from that. We're talking about a quarterback now that hasn't thrown a pass since last Sunday, when not all the passes he threw were on target. We're talking about an offensive line that's now going to be without Joel Bitonio. More defensive issues. The play caller who Mayfield was just this season got to trust and really harmonize with is not going to be there. So this would be, in my mind, if you look past the 12-4 versus 11-5, this would be more of a monumental upset now if they can pull this off.
Yeah, I without question. Well, Mike Prefer met with the media today, and he addressed the situation as far as taking over as the head coach, what he expects this week to be for himself, as well as how he's going to handle being the guy making all the calls as the interim or acting head coach on Sunday.
Well, the approach this week, nothing changes special teams-wise. We've been doing the meetings, and hopefully we'll get in the building at some point and get some work done on the practice field. But that part hasn't changed. The only thing that's different is that I've taken on more of a, game management type stuff. I've met with our game management type, coaches that do a great job. Dave and Ryan and Coach Stefanski and I have been in contact, and we'll continue to be in contact with him throughout the week and going over certain situations that will normally come up, obviously, in the course of a football game. That's really the only big difference for me to get ready for Sunday.
Not every coach is the same. So if you get into some decision-making situations Sunday night, obviously you consult, the team you were just talking about, but do you try to channel Kevin, or do you be your own guy? How does that going to work for you guys Sunday?
You're right. Everybody's different, but I'm going to try to be an extension of Kevin. I mean, he's done a great job with situational football. He and I have, obviously, you guys know my background with him. We've learned a lot of football over the years together. We've talked situational football throughout the year. We've talked about it, during the week and even on game day. We talk situational football. So being in the position that I'm in on special teams, I understand situational football, and I'm kind of into that mode anyway on game day. So that part won't change, but I'm going to try to do exactly what Kevin would want to have happen in those situations.
So let's bring Bud Shaw back in. Bud, when you hear that, what are some of the concerns that you have as far as being down so many coaches? It's not just one coach. Bill Callahan was out, so you're down 3 or 4 coaches. My concern is how are you going to do the in-game adjustments that happen after those scripted plays get done, and you're done with the 15 or 20 scripted plays. Where's the in-game adjustments coming? Who's helping make those calls?
Yeah, exactly. And, the idea that these guys have seen Kevin Stefanski coach and they know what he likes and all that. But we've seen here over the years, Dave, that Sunday is just a totally different animal.
Yes,
Things are
it is.
happening a lot. Things are happening a lot faster than they, you can sit there during the week and game plan with somebody and understand what they want. But this Steelers have it's Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan punched in the mouth. That's the Steelers are that kind of team. They're going to put pressure on Baker Mayfield. They're going to try to keep him from scrambling and keep him in the pocket when they do that. And it's a tough call for an offensive line that's was out without its excellent line coach last week, is with missing personnel this week, wide receivers that are out, and a quarterback that I think is, while he's played very well this year and has really limited mistakes, I think this is a team that has shown that it can get after him when it has all its personnel on the field, unlike last Sunday.
Yeah, the thing would be if you pitched a script like this, hey, professional football team makes the playoffs for the first time in almost 20 years, head coach out, lots of key players out. They come back and win the first round of the playoffs. I'm guessing you're getting thrown out pretty quickly before you get to the second or third sentence of your pitch here.
Yeah, that's I just got off the phone earlier today with a Pittsburgh radio host, and he was asking me, after 18 years or 17 years, and how do people feel about the team in this game? And I said, they feel really great about this season. I think they felt pretty good about their chances in the game before the last week and a half. They had seen the Steelers struggle for 4 games and basically only played one good half of football against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think they were really feeling like they were starting to hit their stride while Roethlisberger looked old. And that has flipped now in this last week. I think people here, if they win, it'll be one of the great upsets in Cleveland history. And if they don't, people will be able to walk away, I think, and say, well, this was a very strange year with COVID, and we know we have answered at least the 2 most important questions. We have our head coach and we have our quarterback, and they haven't been able to say that for a long time in this town.
Yeah, without question. Bud Shaw and I have to take a quick time out. Other side of break, we're going to continue talking Cleveland Browns football. We'll flip sides of the ball, talk a little bit about the Browns defense and facing Ben Roethlisberger. Got it sat out last week. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Shelley, our garage floor is just awful.
I know. We really need Nature Stone.
Cracks, uneven concrete, it's slippery.
I keep telling you, we need Nature Stone.
Coach, only Nature Stone solves all those problems. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your garage floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Herb, Nature Stone fixed every problem in our garage.
I told you.
It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Browns getting ready to face the Steelers Sunday night in the first round of the NFL playoffs. Defensive coordinator Joe Woods has his work cut out for him. Not sure if he's going to have Denzel Ward back just yet. But Woods realizes there are going to be some challenges. He doesn't think the Steelers are going to do a whole lot different things than they did a week ago when they played. But he is concerned that Ben Roethlisberger will be the quarterback for that offense.
Yeah, I feel like what they did against us last week is going to be very similar. You know, Ben's a veteran quarterback. It's hard to fool him. It's hard to disguise against him. So he's going to figure it out. So we're going to have to give him some different coverage packages. We tried to do that a little bit last week with Rudolph. We'll do a little bit more this week. But when it all comes down to it, guys are going to have to execute their jobs, and they're going to have to win one-on-ones. He's going to catch us a few times, and guys are going to have to step up and make plays, bottom line.
Thanks, Jeff. Tony Grossi has our next question.
Hi, Joe. I know the one time you sent pressure against Rudolph, that created the interception. But it was very seldom that you did that. I don't know if it was because you were being vanilla, knowing you were facing them again, or your trust of the guys in the secondary. How delicate is that balance into trusting, a guy who had played only 6 plays all year and leaving him in single coverage when you throw the blitz at? How does that affect now with Ben?
Yeah, it's just something we talk about, and we go through the game plan. We look at different situations and feel like, based on each situation, what's best for us to run. Now, you have to count, last week, just with losing guys late and getting those guys in the fold, I was a little bit more cautious last week. I didn't want to really expose them any more than I needed to. Just try to get them comfortable. But this week, I feel like they've got the experience. They understand we're doing a little bit better. So I feel like I can have some more aggressive calls at times.
Joe Woods, Browns defensive coordinator, talking about maybe getting a little aggressive in blitzing. Let's bring Bud Shaw back in. Dr. Shaw, how important is Denzel Ward being back in uniform? They're not going to know until later in the week, much later in the week, probably right before, it'll either be Saturday or Sunday before he gets cleared because he was put on that list so late.
Yeah, the question you have, Dave, is not only if he gets back in time, but at what percentage will he be when he comes back? I think we've seen with Myles Garrett that getting beyond COVID has been a bit of a struggle for him. Not that you wouldn't want Myles Garrett as a first pick on any defense that you would take, but clearly I think he's suffered some setbacks after going through COVID. So you don't know about Ward. You have to have that guy in the back, especially if you're not going to be able to get pressure with your D line and have to start blitzing. And we know the Olivier Vernon loss is going to be a big one for this team.
What do you do? I mean, do you if you're talking to Joe Woods, I was a little surprised they didn't blitz a little bit more, just because if you can't cover, flip side of that is don't give him as much time if you can get around it.
Yeah, I think we will see them do that a little bit more this time, knowing that, the games I watched over the last month or 5 weeks that involved the Steelers, I started to question whether Ben Roethlisberger's arm was hurt or something else was hurt, because I didn't see him throwing downfield hardly at all. I think they threw downfield more successfully with Rudolph at quarterback. So maybe the silver lining for the Browns is that they can condense their coverage to that first 10 to 15 yards off the line of scrimmage and take their chances on not getting beat deep.
Yeah, but it's strange that you mentioned that, because we listened in to Ben Roethlisberger talking about it, and it's by design. The Steelers, under Ben Roethlisberger, are trying to go to a short, quick passing game, and Roethlisberger sat there and kind of explained why Pittsburgh is doing that.
I think it was put in for multiple reasons. I think when you've got playmakers on the outside, you want to get in their hand quick. Sometimes it's a way to pick up the pace of an offense, right? You're not sending the ball 50, 60 yards downfield. Guys can get back to the line of scrimmage faster. Obviously, the line doesn't have to protect quite as long. You can avoid blitzes when the ball is coming out. So there's a lot of different things and that you can attribute to why we've done it. And I don't think that we're going to get away from it. I just think that we know when the time is right. We got to take our shots down the field like we saw last week. But it doesn't mean we need to revamp our offense. What we've done is we've been successful. We've won a lot of football games this year doing it. And so we'll do it, but we'll also take our calculated risk down the field.
And again, Ben Roethlisberger talking about the short, quick passing game. Let's bring Bud Shaw back in. Bud, the other thing that is kind of interesting, when you talk to Pittsburgh Steelers beat writers, they've said they got away from that in those games that they lost, thrown downfield, and they got back into it second half against the Colts. That scares me just because we've seen coverage issues for the Browns without Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Dave, I was in Indianapolis area for that game, visiting family, and I made a fool of myself because at halftime I said, I think you guys are in good shape because Roethlisberger just cannot throw downfield anymore. I mean, that was just it wasn't just that game, but it was a couple of the previous games that I watched him. And of course, they came back in the second half and he looked like a world beater again at times. So I think, listening to him explain it, I get why they're doing it. I think the added benefit too that he didn't mention is that it's kept him healthier. I think he may have had a minor knee problem this season, but certainly from an arm standpoint, and he's not taking sacks, probably makes him more dangerous. So what worries me from a Browns fan standpoint is that you just have seen this defense so often leave guys running open, and when that happens with a couple of the guys on this Steelers receiving core, that's going to be trouble. And if you get behind these guys and you can't run Nick Chubb as often or Kareem Hunt as often, then that becomes even twice as hard to win over there.
Yeah, without question. And the other thing is the Steelers don't have a big play guy as a running back. Connor is fine. He's kind of Snell. They're both kind of plodding. They'll get you the 3-4 yards. You get the ball in Claypool or Smith-Schuster's hands, and all of a sudden in space, they're awfully hard to tackle.
Yeah, they really are. They're talented guys. That organization has done a nice job of replenishing wide receivers, and it's going to be this defense to me. When they face a quarterback that gets the ball out of his hand quickly and they can't put pressure on him, is probably any defense is going to struggle a little bit. So going into this game with the challenges that they face, I know I keep repeating this, but if they pull this one off, and people will really think 2021 is we've really turned the calendar on what was a bad year last year.
Bud Shaw and I are going to take a quick time out. When we return, we'll turn our attention to the play calling in Baker Mayfield. More sports and Les Levine will be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. So when Kevin Stefanski tested positive for COVID, Browns obviously have their head coach not available to be on the sidelines. He's also the guy that calls the plays for the offensive side of the football that's been so good. That means Alex Van Pelt, the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, slides into play calling duty. And Van Pelt realizes and admits it's going to be a little different, both for him and the way the game is called.
Try to do it as well as I can. I really don't have an approach. Obviously I have a good feel of Kevin and how he's called it throughout the course of the season. I want to stay true to his beliefs in offense, and I feel the same way. So obviously it'll be a little bit different just because of the nature. Nobody calls it the same, but hopefully it'll be very similar. We've had a lot of success offensively, and my hope is to, at the end of the game, there's not too many times where he's yelling at his TV going, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yes, that would be good. Let's bring back in Bud Shaw. And Bud, there is a little bit of an advantage, and we're looking for anything at this point, but you don't really know the tendencies, and he's going to stay true to Kevin Stefanski, but you can't try to call the game like Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I think I get back to this idea that they need to get off to a decent start over there. Not only for the typical reason would be, well, you're playing on the road in a place that's going to be filled with the other team's fans, and that's not going to be the case, obviously. But it's still a comfort level that favors the Steelers. And I think from a Baker Mayfield standpoint, he can say all the right things this week, but if they get off to a bad start with some questionable calls, he's going to be looking over his shoulder at a new play caller, wondering if this guy's going to be able to help him win a game. I like the fact that Mayfield is the kind of personality that he is, because I think in his mind, he thinks he can go in there and make some big throws against that secondary and still either, compete or beat a team that a lot of people don't give him much chance of doing. I think there's a lot of that house money feel to this game, and I think that suits him pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree. Keep in mind, this is a guy that was a walk-on twice. So, I mean, this is now he's trying to walk on to the NFL playoffs and walk away with a win, but I would agree. I think he probably looks at that as a challenge. And the other thing about it is Pittsburgh fell behind huge to the Indianapolis Colts in that the one game that they've won in their last 5. Falling behind to the Indianapolis Colts is a little different than the Browns with the run game that the Browns have as well. I think that's kind of the recipe for the Browns to win. A couple of turnovers and get ahead early.
Yeah, and we've seen, at least I've seen in watching Pittsburgh, that they're getting off to, slow starts. Teams are jamming their receivers early in these games and getting up to the line of scrimmage. And those guys have had a lot of drops. That's not, that's not a sure thing, throwing a short pass to a couple of their wide receivers. So I think there's an opportunity here still. I realize that the deck is stacked, but again, I think this feeling of, hey, nobody thinks we can do it, we have two all-pro running backs and a quarterback who's been pretty darn good for most of the second half of the season. That gives them a good chance, or if not a good chance, certainly a fighting chance.
And you mentioned the quarterback. Baker Mayfield obviously has developed a really good rapport with Alex Van Pelt. Van Pelt will be calling the plays, and Baker Mayfield talked about just how comfortable he is with Alex Van Pelt and feels like they're all in sync, along with Kevin Stefanski as well.
Obviously, much like my relationship with Kevin, been growing a lot as we've gone through these weeks, with everything starting on virtually and just getting to be around him more. We were in the same room for training camp in the first part of the year, but then going back into virtual, he's not that far removed from his playing days. Just real relatable guy, but very understanding. Like I talked about, the open communication is pretty essential to what has been our success so far. And AVP is just like that. He wants to talk through it and hear our thoughts as well. And he wants the conversation to, for the most, whatever is the biggest benefit for the whole room.
And is it almost like a seamless transition to have him calling the plays instead of Kevin for you?
Yeah, I mean, that line of communication's always been open between the three of us, but obviously there's going to be, a few little different nuances with AVP calling it. But I mean, Kevin and him are still talking. We're all still having those conversations throughout the week, just like a normal game plan week would go.
And that is Baker Mayfield talking about Alex Van Pelt. They refer to him as AVP, and he will be calling the plays Sunday night. Bud Shaw, when you look at this, how concerning is it that he hasn't thrown the football in a week, that they haven't? I mean, they didn't have practice the last couple of days before the Steelers game, so I think it's been an entire week that they haven't been on the field practicing, minus the game time that they played against the Steelers. That's got to be a challenge, especially the timing and the coverages on defense.
Yeah, I've heard Baker say that it's not a big deal, which I would say too if I were him. But I think it is, Dave. I mean, we're talking about an offense that is from a passing standpoint is pushing the ball downfield some, but it's also a timing offense. He's getting the ball out quickly, and it doesn't help at all not to have those reps. And you're going in, you can say, well, they're going to be rested, but yeah, they didn't look sharp in that game last week for the most part, I didn't think. And I thought it was understandable why. And now we're just adding on another week that's been, convoluted in trying to get on the field together. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that they face in this, probably a bigger issue than not having Stefanski on the sideline.
The other thing is, when asked, they were asked about who's going to start in place of Joe Bitonio at left guard, and they said, we'll find out we'll figure that out on Saturday or Sunday. So they probably have a pretty good idea. They don't want to let anybody know. How big of a loss is that in your mind? I mean,
I think it's huge. Not only, I have two ways of thinking about it. One is to just be so concerned for him and feeling sad for him because he's waited so long to get there and survived, the 1-31 and a lot of the terrible seasons here. But just from a standpoint of having to run the ball somewhat successfully to have a chance against the Steelers, you certainly like your chances a lot more when Bitonio's there.
I also think he's one of the reasons that Jedrick Wills has played so well as a rookie, because he's got that guy right next to him who's an all-pro. I mean, he's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. I mean, we don't, a lot of us, in the media especially, we watch these games, but we don't really watch the offensive line and talk to those guys on a daily basis about their jobs and how it works, having them all playing together for a length of time. But I think that's a really good point. You're not only losing Bitonio, but you're losing Bitonio's presence with a young guy next to him, and I think that's a major thing.
When you look at the Steelers, you couldn't really get a good read. T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward are going to cause all kinds of problems, and the fact that Hayward is in there and Bitonio is not, that concerns me probably as much as anything. just because pressure up the middle to Baker Mayfield, he's a little undersized to begin with. That's just a recipe for not such good things to happen here.
Yeah, and I think what the Steelers saw, they're coming off a game so recently where they saw Mayfield get outside and hurt them with his legs. I don't think they're going to, or at least they're going to go into this game trying not to let that happen. And I think the teams that he has struggled against more than not in his career have been against defenses that can pressure him up the middle and keep him in the pocket at the same time. And the Steelers have done a very good job of doing that against him, over the course of a couple of seasons now.
The thing that, if they do that, I think the reaction or the adjustment to that is you got to get the ball out quickly, and you set up screens and tight end screens and wide receiver bubble screens, because that secondary of Pittsburgh is not as good as the front seven.
I agree with that, and I think we're going to see Hooper and Njoku play a pretty big role in this game, and they're going to have to for this team to have a legitimate chance.
Yeah, I would agree. The flip side of it is the run game has been awful for Pittsburgh. When you flip the sides of the ball, it's worst in the NFL. They've only gained 1,300 yards, 3.6 yards a carry, bottom. So there is the fact if you can find a way to eliminate the big play downfield, they don't usually drive the football.
No, I agree. And I think it was either the Washington game or the Buffalo game that I watched. And I remember tweeting that I would be surprised if the Steelers won another game. And I felt the same way at halftime of the Colts game and was proven wrong. So, we'll see, if there's something that they've found against the Colts and again against the Browns that they feel they can run the ball a little bit, but I think they have to try to run it a little bit to not to have the Browns defense so focused on those short passes.
Bud Shaw and I are going to take one more time out. When we return, we will focus on that game Sunday night. What we think will happen, what we think the Browns might need to do to come away with a win and advance in the NFL playoffs. More sports and Les Levine will be right back. Stay with us.
Shelly, we really need to get Nature Stone in our basement.
I know, Herb, and it would look great in our laundry room, too.
Coach, only Nature Stone is perfect for your basement and laundry room because it never needs replaced like damp carpet and moldy tile. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your basement or laundry room floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Shelly, Nature Stone is perfect for our laundry room and basement.
I told you.
It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line, a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Browns getting ready to play the Steelers' first round of the NFL playoffs in primetime Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. It will be the first playoff appearance for Baker Mayfield in his NFL career. Mayfield says the goal of this year's Browns wasn't just to make it to the playoffs, but to do something when they got there.
I mentioned it to you guys last week. That for us was a playoff game. So I mean, it's you have to empty the clip. It's win or go home. So you have to be ready for anything. Obviously, for the third time playing these guys, we're going to be ready for any wrinkles and just be ready to adjust and adapt. And like we've been talking about, the most important thing is taking care of the ball, communicating on the sideline, adjusting and seeing what those little wrinkles are with them having a lot of guys back and having that new personnel.
Baker Mayfield talking about the playoff game coming up with the Steelers. Let's bring Bud Shaw back in. So, Dr. Shaw, it comes to this. How do you expect this to play out? And something, I'll let you go first. Something Baker Mayfield mentioned there I think is going to be critical.
Yeah, Dave, a quick background story. This reminds me of 1994 when they were getting ready to go over to play the Steelers. And I unwittingly walked into an early morning show here in Cleveland on Channel 5, I believe, in which they had already built bleachers in the studio, and they had Browns fans in there at like 7 a.m. And they had. So this is going to shock you, Dave. Some of them had been drinking.
No, really?
And they asked me how I thought it was going to go in Pittsburgh, and I said I expect the Steelers will win. And I got booed so lustily, with so many gestures made from these people at 7 a.m, that I think I better watch my words this time. But I do think it's going to be a really tough call for the Browns to go over there and win. It's not so much because of Kevin Stefanski, and I don't mean that in a snarky way. I think he's probably the coach of the year. But I think you can fill in with some other coaches who know what they want to do offensively as close to as well as he. But the Bitonio, missing Bitonio and Olivier Vernon, to me is really a huge loss in a game that I think was going to be pretty competitive and pretty close to begin with for the Browns to win. I don't think they're going to go in there and make the Steelers look like the Tennessee Titans anytime soon. So if they don't get off to a great start, I don't see them winning over there. I think they got to somehow turn the ball over and get out by a touchdown or 10 or 14 points for it to be close.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going, and I have no idea why I feel this way. Logic tells me you're crazy. I think some way they're going to turn the ball. They're going to get a couple turnovers, +1, +2 in the turnover thing, and if they get out to a lead, I think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit on the Steelers. And I'm still not convinced that Ben Roethlisberger of the second half of the Colts game is the Ben Roethlisberger that you're going to see. If you see that Ben Roethlisberger, Browns are going to lose. If you see the Ben Roethlisberger that played the Bengals or the Redskins or the Washington football team, sorry, almost did that, I think the Browns have a chance to win this. And again, I have no idea why I feel that way. I have a feeling that somehow they're going to pull the miracle out of the hat.
Well, I think when you look at it in a longer view of it, you've had one team that hasn't played well in 8 weeks, basically, or let's say 6 weeks, except for one half of football. And I don't count last week because we know why. And you have another team that has played, I think, was getting better almost every week for a while. And I like what Mayfield is doing right now. And I know that his accuracy isn't up to everybody's expectations and hopes in some parts of some games. But I just think he's that guy that could walk into a place like that and think that he's going to shock the world and stand there and tell everybody how he woke up feeling dangerous again. And I know you can't put a lot of stock in attitude, but with this team and with the way this coach has gotten them ready to play every week, I wouldn't put it past them to go in there and upset them. But if I had to pick it, I would pick the Steelers in a close game.
Yeah, my head tells me you are correct, and my heart tells me, and something I feel. I don't know why. I think the Browns are going to find a way to win it. Bud Shaw, we are all out of time. As always, Dr. Shaw, it was a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll be checking in with you again Monday. Your normal day.
Great to be with you, Dave.
All right,
Great
thanks.
to be with you.
Bud Shaw. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine. We will see you again tomorrow for the Weekend Winners edition. We'll chat with Joe Rutter, Pittsburgh Steelers beat reporter, as well as Brett Hudson, Crimson Tide beat reporter from down in Tuscaloosa. Ellis Williams will join us to talk Browns, Steelers as well. It's coming up tomorrow. We'll see you again tomorrow right here on More Sports and Less Levine.